Hello, my name's Nico, and I've always wanted to do book reviews, inspired by many great book reviewers I know. This is my first book review. I hope you like it. It's the Steppenwolf by Hermann Hesse, and it's a German author born in Kahl in the south of Germany. He was not a very good student when he was young because he didn't really like the education system back at the and the problem with this sort of education is that it didn't allow the person to be an individual, exercise its tastes and creativity. It was just like technical school, you're gonna study this to work in this, etc. He first started selling books so he could survive, right? And then eventually he could write a book that would sell out enough so he could live on writing, which was amazing. Just like Thomas More, which he was friends with, they had to leave Germany because of the war and all these imminent terrors that were around that area in Europe, specifically in Germany, right? So he lived most of his life in Switzerland. It was very hard for him to live among nationalists and the Second World War that was on its way. So what is the Steppenwolf? Steppenwolf is a book that talks about the duality of a person, of a personality, and not only the duality of it, but the manifolds of personality that each person got, depending on what age you're in, where you're living, your mood, your experiences, and how all of this shapes us, and that we are not just one, we are many. We are infinite. Sometimes it talks about the terrors of existence as well. I think it's a very trippy book too. The first book I ever got in contact by him was Demian, and I've really enjoyed reading Demian, but it's more youth book, a coming of age. And I think I've read it at the right time because I was still a teenager, I was still making up my life, still making up the things I liked. And the Steppenwolf, it's a lot more about aging and still having a sort of crisis regarding yourself, your life, the people around you, and the things they cannot see. So how does the book start? It first starts with a briefing by the nephew of a landlady who just hosted a completely new stranger, and it was a very weird person for him. He was like, I don't really like this guy, and he's still not really getting a grasp on what is the behavior of this man. So he is a little bit skeptical because Harry Haller, the Steppenwolf, is a very collected person, won't talk unless needed. Sometimes we'll talk about many deep things out of nowhere, as if he could have a perspective on things that is always in depth. He takes everything very seriously. So he's someone that looks a bit like he's negligencing his own life, but he still wants to live in a very comfortable environment, and that's why he chooses this room in this house. Eventually, he starts understanding more about Harry Haller and even reads his notes, which are the ones we are left with. Some of the bits in here remind me of Aldous Huxley, The Doors of Perception, for obvious reasons. But I'll keep up with Harry Haller's notes. The Steppenwolf notes are basically the things Harry Haller lived. It's Harry Haller's journal, and it starts with a sentence like, for madmen only. Harry is stuck in a moment of his life that living the same day over and over. And it's not exactly routine, but a lack of routine as well, which can be very bad. And he doesn't find any joy in life anymore. He doesn't see a reason to keep on living. He doesn't have any friends. He's very lonely. And he also feels like he cannot live with people around him, cannot really talk to people. And that's part of his personality as well, because he sees himself as this duality of person and wolf. And when he's being well behaved and talking to people properly, the wolf inside him gets into rage and hates those kind of things. But when the wolf's in charge, Harry, the person, even though he likes the release of anger and the release of stress, he's always suffering for the damage that the wolf might end up causing. Basically, this is what might happen to one person when they are caught between generations, and also when they prevail that something very bad is imminent, like the Second World War. Take it that Steppenwolf was published in 1927. And it's hard for him because he sees many people around him that were his friends and so on being connivent with the upcoming war and nationalist ideals. So while he's stuck in this moment of his life that he doesn't really know what to do, which path to follow, we've got this beautiful part in here. There is much to be said for contentment and painlessness, for these bearable and submissive days, on which neither pain nor pleasure is audible, but pass by whispering and on tiptoe. But the worst of it is that it is just this contentment that I cannot endure. After a short time, it fills me with irrepressible hatred and nausea. In desperation, I have to escape and throw myself on the road to pleasure, or, if that cannot be, on the road to pain. When I have neither pleasure nor pain and have been breathing for a while the lukewarm insipid air of these so-called good and tolerable days, I feel so bad in my childish soul that I smash my mouldering lyre of thanksgiving in the face of the slumbering god of contentment, and would rather feel the very devil burning me than this warmth of a well-heated room. A while longing for strong emotions and sensations seizing me, a rage against this toneless, flat, normal and sterile life. I have a mad impulse to smash something, a warehouse, perhaps, or a cathedral, or myself, to commit outrages, to pull off the wings of a few revered idols, to provide a few rebellious schoolboys with the longed-for ticket to Hamburg, or to stand one or two representatives of the established order on their heads. For what I have always hated and detested and cursed above all things was this contentment, this healthiness and comfort, this carefully preserved optimism of the middle classes, this fat and prosperous brood of mediocrity. So all his living in this very tense moment for the country and for himself, he goes out to drink at night without really talking to anyone, reads by himself, stays by himself, and writes some stuff in his room. Until one day he comes across a dark alley that he passed by all the time, and he realized that there's a door in that place, but it wasn't there before. He's like, I'm not crazy, am I? Like, come on. And it's written something like magic theater, for madmen only, not for everyone. And he's a bit puzzled by that, but he keeps going with his day. And when he's coming back, he goes to the same exact place, and there's nothing there. He thinks like, oh, I must be going crazy, what the fuck. And then a guy comes across the street, and he's got like a placard, and it's written the same thing about the magic theater and this sort of entertainment. And then he's like, stop, you! That's what I want. Where are you going? The guy's very like, oh no, it's not for everyone. Like, just keep going. He tries to pull it off. And then eventually Harry Heller, by being insistent like that, gets a book from the guy, which he puts in Harry Haller's pocket. And when Harry gets back home, he's like, oh, it's a self-help book, oh my god. But then he realizes the name is a treatise on the Steppenwolf. And when he starts reading the book, he realizes that the book's talking about him, and it's very punctual on all the things he's feeling, all of the sensations he's had, about his dual personality, and how this wolf and human are trying to coexist in the same body, and that there's like some people who have fish, some people who have like deer, Many people have different sorts of personality, but he himself cannot make both of his personalities cope. And he's very intrigued by that book. He can't really understand how that really got into his hands. And while he keeps hammering the things he read on the book throughout his day, he meets an old friend on the street, and this is another scholar who used to study Asian religions, Buddha, and he invites Haller to go to his house so they can have dinner. And Haller agrees. The human agrees, but the wolf is very angry at him, like, you can't deal with that. You won't be able to talk to people. And on the day that he's getting ready to get there, he has this very bad presentiment. He knows that something bad will happen if he went there, but he still decided to go. And the moment he got to this guy's house, he saw a picture of Goethe, and it's like a modern version of Goethe's. Like, I imagine it must be our equivalent of a AI generated picture of, I don't know, Jimmy Page playing or something like that. Like, no, come on, like, what are you doing? But he doesn't say anything in the beginning, but he starts picking up all these little things that are making him mad about this guy. And at some point, he just bursts and offends his wife, and his wife goes out running, and then the guy tries to talk to him, and he's like very mad, enraged, furious. So his host tells him about the fact that it's alright for him to not agree with that, but he shouldn't be so outspoken, to which Harry Haller replies, "There you are right," I admitted. "Unfortunately, it is a habit, a vice of mine, always to speak my mind as much as possible, as indeed Goethe did too in his better moments. In this chaste drawing room, Goethe would certainly never have allowed himself to use an outrageous, a genuine and unqualified expression. I sincerely beg your wife's pardon and your own. Tell her, please, that I'm a schizomaniac. And now, if you will allow me, I will take my leave." This was like the last straw for Harry. He really couldn't take it anymore. And after he says this, he takes off to a bar or whatever to just get some relief. The human side tells him that, yeah, that was awful. And then the wolf side puts it like, yeah, you should kill yourself now. And even though he doesn't want to kill himself, and he's fighting against that by going from bar to drink and avoid the unavoidable, he keeps fighting. And then eventually he gets into a bar that it's like the last of the night, the only one that is still open. And a flapper that looks pretty much like a childhood friend of his called Hermann ends up coming to him and telling him, "I can totally see for you." She starts giving him directions, everything that he should do. You should drink this, you should eat this. How did you allow yourself to get into this situation? So sometimes she's very motherly. Sometimes she's very feminine. Sometimes she's almost masculine in a sort of way. And that's what makes her very attractive and having this distinct sort of beauty, you know? He was depressed, seeking death, and almost begging for her to not let him go back to his house, which is this part here. "Although I saw no other way out, although nausea, agony, and despair threatened to engulf me, although life had no allurements and nothing to give me either of joy or hope, I shudder all the same with an unspeakable horror of a gaping wound in a condemned man's flesh." It's an imminent feeling at some point for some people. The moment he talks about the reason why he left his friend's house and why he he did that to himself, he goes on to say that it was just because of Goethe's pictures. And then Herman's telling him, "You should just laugh it off. This is something you laugh about. That's not something you rage against and think about killing yourself." And I think it's the same for us. Like, sometimes we are so anxious and we are so close in an idea that is making us feel bad that we can't really see any solution for these things. We are like, "I will never go out in public again, but I need to kill myself because I'm such a shame to my entire bloodline." And that's what he tells him, like, you just laugh it off. You don't have to suffer so much in anticipation for things, and also after they happen. They cannot solve all the things in the world, and people will be mean no matter what you do, and horrible things are happening all around, but you cannot let all of these things get to yourself, or else you won't be able to live. Collect yourself and see that it's not as harsh as you believe it is. It's like, oh my god, you're my savior now, what am I gonna do without you? And then she's just giving him directions of what to do with his life, tells him, oh, now you stay here, rest a while, eat something, and then I'm gonna come back and we're gonna talk. And when she comes back, they get an appointment for the next day, have lunch, and while they're having lunch, they talk about existence itself. They talk about very somber and dark things as well. And even though she's very cheerfully talking to him and teaching him the joys of eating at a fancy restaurant once in a while, of dancing, events, of talking to people, of women again, of the music of the times, she gets a bit somber and she has a very dark look in her eyes. And then she looks at him and tells him that he has to promise her that at some point he will have to kill her. Haller describes as, these eyes of hers seem to have suffered all imaginable suffering and to have acquitted in it. So she's capable of reading people in general, she's capable of taking some empathy to them, but she's very intelligent because of this. She does that as a way of surviving, as her métier, one would say. But she's also very aware of the things, of how people are driven into those sort of situations, I would say. And eventually she teaches him how to dance, takes him out when he learns his first dance, which is the trot dance from the time. I like it that it's this very art deco, very 20s, very drinking alcohol, partying all the time vibe to it, at the same time that they are having this very deep conversations about everything. It's nice to see his development from being an intellectual, and he could be like 100 years old in his intellectualism and academic knowledge, but of life he knew close to nothing. She says he's like a 4-year-old in dancing. By going out and courting the girls, he sometimes feels ashamed and embarrassed, not used to approaching girls anymore. He's been a very lonely guy for a while. Certainly he's a very anxious fellow. When he sees a beautiful girl dancing, and Herman tells him, go there, approach her, it's like a little bit, no, like she's gonna find me old, she's gonna find me ugly, and he didn't even try to do. And she says like, oh, you shouldn't feel embarrassed, you have to try things at least once in your life. Of course you're gonna get some no's sometimes, but that's a part of it. You shouldn't let that stop you. I think it's lovely when she tells him that, and that I should laugh at you, of course, doesn't matter what a coward you are. Everyone risks being laughed at when he addresses a girl. That's always at stake. So take the risk, Harry, and if the worst come to the worst, let yourself be laughed at. Otherwise, it's all up with my belief in your obedience. That's all about taking a laugh. Of course, here in Herman's, their life is all full of dancing and partying and just enjoying. And Harry was being the exact opposite. So having this new entrance into this world and being able to experience these other things puts another perspective into his mind, because he's been all the time only complaining about the culture from now, the music from now, and that only the old ones, that Mozart, only the great ones could do music for real. He meets Pablo. He plays mostly all the instruments and he knows a bit of classical music, but what he really does is playing and feeling the music, jazz, Latin beats, and it was very new to him and not classical music at all. Eventually when he starts dancing, he gets what is the kick that you can get by enjoying the sort of music, which is something he couldn't ever notice if he was just standing from outside that point of view. But once he started dancing, he's just stuck in that same moment all together. The music, the sound waves that are all around, just indulging into that moment without the least bit of worry. That makes you feel alive, which was something that even though he was breathing before, he couldn't feel. And from this moment onwards, by being with Hermine, he could experience these things. So Pablo, in the beginning, he doesn't really care about Pablo. He thinks like, oh, Pablo is just a stupid musician. But eventually, he starts understanding more about the music that is felt, that is danced. And I think this really puts a reflection on when we are complaining about something new. I have things from my culture and from this time that I don't really like. And I'm like, oh, before it used to be better. But was it really better, or is it just me? There's a wall, there's a door that I avoid in opening, and that I don't want to open because of some prejudice or anything like that. Of course, there are things that are about tastes and things that we really do like, but it's interesting to try to differentiate the things we are just not accustomed to because they are new, because they are different, and the things that really we are just not keen to. From this moment onwards, Harry starts learning new dances. He's going out with Maria. He gets to kiss a lot of girls during nights out. Hermine is preparing him for the great ball that they are going to have at some point. When he gets there alone by himself, he does find Maria, but he knows that his heart's belonging to Hermine at this point. But he couldn't find Hermine at all. When Hermine spoke to him, she was dressed as a guy. And that's only then that he realized it was Hermine. And he immediately fell in love with her. That they danced a lot throughout the entire night. The music itself, everyone was already leaving, the lights were already coming up, and they were dancing and just feeling the music and feeling each other's bodies while they were dancing. And it was an endless joy for him. In a situation that he could have never imagined himself before. That the only thing blocking him from that was himself. Pablo takes Hermine and the Steppenwolf to go into the magic theater. And when they get there, they are separated, and always orchestrated by Pablo, who's showing him the way and telling him he's left alone in this room full of doors of perception. Each door has a name. It's a world of dreams or nightmares, depending on the one you get and how you behave in there. This day, Pablo is very eloquent, talkative, and explaining and guiding them to the theater, right? Sometimes Pablo will appear as Mozart for him. You can see that it changes from Pablo to Mozart in some points. Cryptographed meaning, I would say. Very surrealistic, I would say. It's just a lot of dreams going on, subversive things happening. You will see by the name of some of the doors. Mutabor, transformation into any animal or plant you please. Kama Sutra, instruction in the Indian art of love course for beginners. Delightful suicide, you laugh yourself to bits. Compendium of art, transformation from time into space by means of music. Oh, you have all of these doors with some subtitles on them. One of them he's driving in a cliff and there's like a war against machines going on, and that represents one part of his personality, which is not really liking modern technology arriving at the lives of people. Some in which he has the chance to fix the chances he had with the women in his life, many with which he had never even exchanged enough words, but he desired, and he didn't even try back in the past, and that now he realized he had a chance, but he failed because he thought too little of himself. He goes on to a music door, which has Mozart talking about how he shouldn't feel so much hatred towards technology and progress. Because even though listening to music on the radio is not the same thing as listening to real life music, it could still recreate the feeling. So you have access to those things, even though you can't have them live all the time. At least you can recreate the feeling that music gives. It's full of allegories to Haller's own history, and I think I would need to read it again, already having this notion, because the overall portrayal of Hermine and Pablo carries so much meaning, especially in this part where he's having this epiphanies and situations in which it still feels too real, and he still can get to learn again from past situations, but face them in a more mature and less serious way. And at last, he gets into the door. Hermine is lying on the floor with Pablo. Haller was very aware that they slept together, that she slept with other people, and he did as well. But you cannot really understand if it's out of jealousy, if it's out of hatred, whatever the feeling that made him do that, but he goes and kills her. This part gets very confusing. I try to understand, I try to read more of it, because in my view, she asked him to be killed because at some point she would have to die. But she also said that he should first have her, So in this moment, Pablo stops everything and says that he's failed because he's taking things too seriously. So I thought maybe he wasn't supposed to kill Herman. But this is the world of dreams, and does Herman really exist? What is going on in here? I want to read it again to see if I can get that, or if I'm the one taking it too seriously. Maybe it's the point of the book. I shouldn't take it so seriously. Did he kill her? Did he didn't kill her? Didn't he, or did he not kill her? Was she even real? Is Pablo real? Is this just part of Harry's imagination? Did he fail because he took things too seriously once again and killed her when he should just left it off about them sleeping together, even if at this point of the book he was deeply madly in love with Hermine? Who knows? The book really did put a lot of thoughts in my head about my personality, the personality of people around me, how it is built, how it's made of everyone around me as well, and the people who have raised me, the people I've talked to, the things they've done, how sometimes indulging in self-destructing acts, the ones Herman goes through, like drinking and going out and just enjoying a little bit of time outside, productive things from time to time to help you ground yourself. I think these are all very good points they make in there. And I love the part in which Harry Haller is entering the Magic Theater and all the doors are at his disposal, but the placing between the doors is like a mirror. So when he looks at himself on the side and he sees his face of happiness, even though he spent the entire night dancing, he should be tired, he's just like very happy and glad, and he's seeing a look in his face that he couldn't ever remember of. He couldn't try to recreate if he wanted it, and was such a sense of being complete in some sort of way, as if things couldn't really harm you, of being indestructible, even if just for a short while. So yeah, I would totally recommend people reading The Steppenwolf, especially if you're in the moment of your life that you're feeling stuck and there's nothing that you really like. And also if you're having some sad thoughts regarding what to do from now onwards, or towards the time you're living in, the people you're living with, all the tough things going around in the world. So yeah, bye. Thank you, stranger, that might have watched the entirety of this mess. Hopefully I will get better with time and make things more concise and, how do I get the word for this? And more condensed, because this was long. So I hope you have a great day wherever you are, whoever you are. I hope you can still endure being alive. Bye.